Welcome back. Regularly exercising, prioritizing sleep, and eating a balanced diet are just a few ways to help prevent colds and other illnesses in this unpredictably cold weather conditions. To give us more details on how to help ourselves from getting sick as well as the little ones from getting colds and flu, I'm now joined by Dr. Armid Azadeh, who is a general practitioner. Doctor, good evening and welcome to the Daily Roundup.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me today.
Doctor, today we're talking about how to keep the sniffles, the coughs and the sneezes away. Perhaps we can start by talking about the difference between a cold and a flu.
So I think this is the age-old question. We always say we have the flu. But really, there's two main types of illnesses over the years. There's the common cold, which usually doesn't give you a bad cough. It doesn't give you the fevers. And then the flu, which we say is like a bad cold. And that usually will give you more of a cough and fevers as well. So it tends to get to your chest more, give you the body aches. And that way, when we had the COVID infections around more often, they resembled the flu more often because they had the cough quite quickly, fevers, body aches. But in essence, the cold there's some viruses that cause the common cold, and there's other viruses that cause influenza, or what we call the flu.
What is it about the winter season, Dr. Azadeh, that causes our bodies to sort of deteriorate and catch colds or flus more easily?
Well, these viruses are more stable in cold weather. That's a theory that I think is pretty much holding quite firm. But one of the other factors really, I think, is more behavioral. Our immune systems tend to be a little bit more down because of the weather and exposure to the cold. But we also tend to huddle a lot closer together, be more indoors. And that makes the transmission of the virus also more easy. And that's why you tend to have, the winter flus and colds happening more. It's not, the term cold doesn't mean because of the weather. We call it a cold virus, but it isn't necessarily because of the weather being cold.
Do you think that since the advent of COVID-19, the world takes, common colds or flus a bit more seriously?
I think the common public, definitely. People are still a little bit on edge. When you have the sniffles start or a bit of a sore throat, people, especially those who were, deeply affected by COVID-19, that's the first thing they tend to often think about. But on the other hand, we also have a lot of patients who kind of think that COVID is in the past, and they don't even consider that it could be COVID because it's a lot milder and we don't hear about it every day. But you'd be surprised to know that there's still quite a lot of COVID infections going around, but nothing severe enough that most people don't get tested. No one's really getting hospitalized. I mean, apart from the odd patient, but it really does seem to be something of the past.
Let's talk preventative measures, Doctor. How do we, prevent contracting the cold and flu, especially with the, the little ones? Some of them, go to kindergarten and preschool, and it seems like the flus and the colds are all over in those spaces.
Yeah, the snot neases and is always going to be a major source of picking up these bugs. I think the thing is, it's part of growing up is to get your immune system exposed to these viruses so that you do build an immunity. The reason why COVID was such an issue is we didn't have any immunity to it. It was something new, the new novel coronavirus. And we've had other coronaviruses that do affect us from time to time, but they weren't new to us. So that's why it didn't give us such a hard time. So, part of growing up is going to be, catching these colds and flus until your immune system gets stronger. But I would recommend, especially as adults, if COVID taught us one thing, it was hand washing and, distancing ourselves when we have a bit of a cold or a cough or a bit of a flu. And that's still very important because if you're able to hand wash more regularly, it definitely will prevent you getting exposed to the cold virus or the flu viruses that are going around. And then in terms of keeping your immune system strong, I always tell my patients the most important thing is rest. Like getting a good amount of rest is going to help your immune system, do much better. So getting enough rest, and then, diet-wise, they talk about vitamins in general, but vitamin C has been shown to be quite useful in maintaining your immune system.
Same treatments go for the little ones?
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
My question was the same, do the same treatment methods work for the little ones as well?
I mean, luckily the little ones' immune systems tend to, take things much better than us. So their flus or their colds are much shorter lived and less severe. So they tend to bounce back quite quickly. But yes, the same thing, getting enough rest, vitamin C, so the orange juices or lemon juice is always going to help, or just vitamins that you get over the counter can also help, multivites or specifically vitamin C. That will help with their immune systems just to sort of keep a bit stronger. And then the other thing I would recommend is if your child has a fever, definitely, don't get them to go to the creche or to the preschool, because that's just going to keep spreading it around. I know it's not always easy with working parents, but as far as possible, if you can, proactively see when your child is quite ill and rather keep them out so that it doesn't just keep going around and spreading.
Doctor, just very, very quickly, a lot of people believe in getting the flu shot to prevent them from getting sick in wintertime. When is the best time to take it?
So usually, globally, the flu shot is released twice a year. Once mostly for the Northern Hemisphere when they're expecting their flu season, and then for the Southern Hemisphere when we're expecting our flu season. So ours tends to be in, I think the best time, March, April, May, it tends to be released, and that's the best time to sort of start taking the flu vaccine. I generally would recommend it to patients who, have pre-existing medical conditions, who are a little bit older, who generally get hit quite hard by the flu. It's a good vaccine to take. It can prevent you getting influenza A or B, the different flu virus strains that are going around. We had, pretty bad strains of bird flu and swine flu in the past, and we still have, versions of that going around. So these flu vaccines will prevent that. If you're someone who, handles a lot of, touching a lot of common surfaces or dealing with a lot of clients, public spaces, think of teachers or bank tellers, for example, that would definitely be a good profession that I would recommend taking a flu vaccine just to kind of prevent getting the annual flu. But that would be sort of April to May is probably the best time. June still. I think now it's a little bit late. I think the flu is right, with us at the moment. You can see a lot of us have been coughing, feverish, flus. So the flu is kind of with us at the moment.
Dr. Azadeh, thank you for your time. Lovely talking to you this evening. Thank you for joining us.
Bye.
Well, there you have it. We'll be right back after.